Not just explaining the world, but changing it. You're listening to WBPU LP St. Petersburg.
Hi, this is Rich Brown inviting you to stay tuned to the Jazz Zone, hosted by Tien, Providence.
The song to the man Bobby Broom, kicking things off here on our special edition honoring the late great Roberta Flack. And that track we started off was a hit for her and Donny Hathaway back in 1972, written by Ralph MacDonald and William Salter. And yes, I started a little late today, but we are here. I didn't expect it to snow this morning, but it did. And traffic, of course, it gets all mixed up. But we're in the house here, and we're going to go up until the 1 o'clock hour. The first 2 hours, we're going to pay attention and pay tribute to the great Miss Roberta Flack. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her bio as we go along. But let's kick off the next set with a track taken from her reissued debut album, First Take. It included a lot of songs that were not on the original album. The track we're going to play is her version of Afro Blue. Roberta Flack.
Dream of a land my soul is from. I hear the hand stroke of a drum. Shades of delight, cocoa hue, rich as the night, Afro blue. Elegant boy, beautiful girl, dancing for joy, delicate whirl. Shades of delight, cocoa hue, rich as the night, Afro blue. dream of a land my soul is from. I hear the hand stroke of a drum, shades of delight, cocoa hue, rich as the night after Elegant boy, beautiful girl, dancing for joy, delicate world, shades of delight, rich as the night after blue.
Roberta Flack from First Take. They reissued the version, came out 23, yes. It has about an extra 14, 15 extra songs on it, the double deluxe version. Afro Blue. All right, let's tell you a little bit about Roberta Flack. Her name, given birth name is Roberta Cleopatra Flack. She was an American singer and pianist known for her emotive genre-blending ballads that span many musical genres like R&B, jazz, folk, and pop, and contributed to the birth of the Quiet Storm radio style. Her commercial success has included the Billboard Hot 100 chart-topping singles, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, Killing Me Softly with a Song, and Feel Like Making Love. She became the first artist to win the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in 2 consecutive years, 73-74. She was born on February 10, 1937 in Black Mountain, North Carolina, to parents Laurent Flack, a U.S. Veteran Administration draftsman, and Irene Flack, a high school cook and church organist. Her family moved to Richmond, Virginia before settling in Arlington, Virginia when she was 5 years old. She grew up in a large musical family, and when she was 9, she took an interest in playing the piano and often accompanied the choir of the Lomax African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church by playing hymns and spirituals on the piano. But she also enjoyed going to the Baptist church down the street to listen to contemporary gospel music, including songs performed by the great Mahalia Jackson and the man Sam Cooke. Can't really fault her for that. Who wouldn't want to hear Mahalia Jackson blow? This is, kick off some more music here. This is Cornelius Dupree from the album of the same name, The Closer I Get to You. the man Bob James from his original album on the CTI record labels, One. That was his version of her hit, Feel Like Making Love. Hit for her in 74, I think it was, 74, 75. And, of course, she started off the set with, I said Cornelius, but it's Cornell Dupree. Cornell Dupree from the album The Closer I Get to You. We heard the title track. All right, let's tell you a little bit more about Roberta Flack before we go bring in some more music. During her early teens, she excelled at classical piano, finishing second in a statewide competition for black students, earning a full music scholarship to Howard University. She entered Howard University at the age of 15, making her one of the youngest students ever to enroll there. She eventually changed her major from piano to voice and became an assistant conductor of the university choir. Her direction of a production of Giuseppe Verdi's opera, Aida, received a standing ovation from the Howard University faculty. She graduated from Howard University at 19 and began graduate studies in music there, but the sudden death of her father forced her to take a job teaching music and English at a small segregated high school in Farmville, North Carolina, for which she was paid $2,800 for the year. $2,800 a year. It sounds a little bad now, but I guess at those times it was probably a good amount of money. Before becoming a professional singer-songwriter, Flack returned to Washington, D.C. and taught at Benneker, Brown, and Robert junior high schools. She also taught private piano lessons out of her home in the city. During that time, her music career began to take shape on evenings and weekends in nightclubs.